Good morning, everyone. Since it's the last day of the conference, I think it's quite important that we try to draw together some of the strands of the issues that have been discussed. And at the very beginning of this week, at the ACES part of this event, I made a comment at the opening about the fact that what education needs to be doing today is not particularly to be delivering a focused curriculum that is designed simply to deliver children with examination qualifications at the end. But it is to open our young people's minds and prepare them to be good human beings in a world that, particularly in the future, is going to need that empathy and understanding of every one of its citizens. And that has been something that has arisen in a lot of the conversations this week, because we do need to go further than what is traditionally delivered within the school. Another problem that I have recognized this week is when people have talked about good and bad teachers. And I would prefer to talk about good and perhaps currently poor teachers. And I make that point because there is no absolute about this at all. And to me, the quality of teachers and teaching is often more affected by the leadership in a school than by any other consideration. And the evidence I would give you for this is an example I can bring from my own activities in the UK of being asked to step in to a school that was failing, where everybody said the teaching was poor, but by putting in place a new principal with new ideas, 3 years later, the very same teachers who were accused of poor teaching are now being told they are good teachers. We can change, and the understanding of professional development for teachers is all important. Because in the end, if teachers do not have the right development, how can we involve them in the sort of assessment processes that we will need in the future? And what I'm suggesting here is that in the end, we will move away from the written examinations and much more to trusting our teachers in their assessment of their young people. Another point that has been made this week seems to reflect upon the fact that education ends when a child leaves the last educational institution that they have been in. But surely that's not the case. Our educations are going to go on for life. And I think it would be very interesting to do as has been done in some places, and to try and track students 20, 30 years down the line after they have left an institution. Because you will then, if you track back, find out what really worked for that student, what made them good, what helped them, what hindered them. And I know these are long-term processes, but as is always the case in education, it is a long-term activity. And we do need to take those opportunities to reflect over the long term as to what we are doing. We've also touched occasionally on the importance of student voice. We are not really, in many, many countries, understanding the importance of the student contribution that they can make to a school, college, or university community. And the more we can do to give them a voice that is really valuable, that really assists in the development of the institution, the more, in the end, we will end up with a good community within any institution. And I know one or two of the things that I am saying are probably somewhat alien to what is happening in institutions here, but also in many other countries. But we need to, as educators, open ourselves up to professional scrutiny. And I will give you just one last example of something that I think is important. And that is the fact that traditionally, teachers in their own classroom do not want to be disturbed by any other teacher or anyone else coming into their classroom and watching them. When there is lesson observation, it is traditionally thought of as somebody coming to judge me. If you can move in an institution to a situation whereby it is normal that on a daily basis, teachers will go between classrooms, watch each other teach, not because there is a single route to good teaching, but simply because by watching one's peers, you will pick up little tidbits of things that work and occasionally things that don't. But just that very opening up will encourage a professional aspect to the way in which all the teachers in an institution can work together. That implies, for example, that you can get to a point where you could agree amongst the staff a particular approach to a standardized lesson plan, exactly how every lesson within the school is, what process it's going to follow. The value of that not necessarily being so much for the teacher, but for our future fit learners, in that if they know at the start of a lesson exactly what the objectives of that lesson are, if they are part of a continuous assessment of the learning in that lesson whilst it is taking place, and they can expect a recap of the learning outcomes that were expected at the end, that's going to help consolidate the learning that will happen there. And I could, of course, but I'm out of time, go on to many, many other subject areas, but otherwise I want to finish today by saying that I have been so impressed this week to talk to so many of you who have either had comments about what they're doing in their own institutions or questions about what we are doing elsewhere. And I see the enthusiasm and the desire for education in all institutions here to become future fit. And I wish you success in that enterprise. Thank you.